right, welcome into another episode, Dad Mode episode of Preacher in the Hat. I've got across from me, of course, my brother Derek. My name's Eric, and we're happy to be with you wherever you are watching or just listening. Thanks for being a part. If you have been paying attention to this series, we are winding down Dad Mode as our summer comes to a close. Not temperature-wise, but at least schedule-wise. Our summer's coming to a close. For those of you who are familiar, our dad, Steve, recovering great from his surgery, so we will be back. He will be back with us full-time coming up here pretty soon. But a couple more things that we've wanted to cover in our Dad Mode series, and today we're talking about a day. The title of the episode is A Day in the Life of a Dad. Mm-hmm. Got a couple things that I was just interested in talking about. No note cards for this one. We're just we're kind of rapping a little bit. So a couple things. There are things in being, when it comes to being a dad, that they don't tell you about. A couple of those things, and one of these doesn't necessarily have to do with being a dad per se, more so being a human, being a guy in your mid-30s. That a couple of things that have happened this week to me and to you. The first thing I wanted to make sure that we did, unexpected news of this week, and send condolences your way for the loss of your 2016 Chevy Silverado.
Yeah. RIP or whatever it's going to do, bother somebody else. Yeah, it was going to have to put way too much money into it. That was, I was a little bit sad about it though, because my idea for that truck when I got it back in 2020 was that it was going to be the truck that I was going to teach Isaac to drive in, because I figured it was like, okay, I can get this thing to 250. It'll be about 15 years old when he's ready to drive. I'm like, this would be perfect. So dreams crushed there. Or that dream was crushed, absolutely obliterated. Didn't even get close.
He's 5.
Got a third of the way there. Ridiculous.
Tough scenes there. And then on a more serious note, now you have a lot of experience with this, but this happened this week. So my wife and I, our third child was born in June. So, but a few days after he turned a month old last week, we ended up in the middle of the night, felt like he was getting a little bit warm, had a fever. He was super fuzzy. And a fever is not really a good thing. I mean, not necessarily a good thing at any time, but especially not a good thing for a 1-month-old baby. So it could be something totally benign, or it could be something totally serious. And it's kind of a requirement that if you have a baby with a fever, that at that early of an age, that you take it super seriously. So we called the pediatrician. They're like, yeah, come on in. So that day, Friday at 12 o'clock, get in to the pediatrician, or maybe a little before that, doesn't matter. And temperature was high enough that they were like, you need to go to children's ER, the emergency room. And that's like, as a parent, that's like the last, as well as anybody, that's like the last recommendation that you want to hear.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, take your child to the emergency room because we can't do enough here at the pediatrician's office. Now, caveat for us on that particular thing, the main reason they wanted us to go to the ER is, one, because he had a fever high enough, but also at the ER, they turn their testing around really fast. Pediatrician's going to take blood work 24 hours to come back. It takes maybe 30, 45 minutes, possibly an hour at the ER, and they can turn around real quick. So that was one of the reasons for going. But if here in Birmingham, we have Children's Hospital, which I don't know the numbers or rankings or whatever, but it has to be one of like the best hospitals for children in the world.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a super nice facility. Like, it's a blessing in terms of
It's one of
being a parent.
I was
in the
telling
city.
people, I was telling a couple of the nurses at Children's, I was like, this is the building that, as a parent, every time you drive by, you see it on the skyline. You're so grateful that it's there in your city. And then when it's time to walk in the building, it's like,
I hate this place. Yeah, right.
but we were super happy for it. And, like I said, we live close by. That's such a blessing. They were telling us, people drive
Hours.
Parents drive hours and hours and hours to come to that Children's ER. Anyways, so long story short, they had to do blood work, bunch of other tests because of how young he is. Not necessarily because they thought anything terrible in particular was wrong, but that's just kind of the required protocol for a baby that young when they have a fever. And turns out he just had a common cold. Probably got it from one of our older kids, something like that. Maybe even one of us, but basically got it from somebody else who, has no issues or no symptoms, with that, whatever they picked up. And because we've dealt with it so many times or whatnot, but, he had a fever for about a day plus, super fussy that one day. They pumped him full of Tylenol when he got to the ER, and he felt really good. Pretty much after that, we gave him a little bit for the following 24 hours, maybe a little bit beyond that. And, he's good to go now. Yeah. He's doing great. But back to what I was talking about at the beginning, that is something that no book, no advice, no reading could prepare you for putting your child in the car and driving to an emergency room for whatever reason. I sat there thinking in the building what it's got to be like for parents who are there long term. Mm-hmm. They have weekly parking rates or I forget, whatever, like that kind of stuff. And that's just terrifying, or can be terrifying to think.
I've had a couple of people that I've known, worked with in the past on multiple different occasions. Their kid essentially had whatever the equivalent was of a fast pass in the ER, because of, something that they were dealing with medically, where anytime they hit a certain, if they had a fever or whatever, it was ER, and they give the card to the nurse and they're bumped to the top of the line because of how serious it is for their kid. There's no manual for that. Like you're saying, there's absolutely no manual, and you just have to kind of learn as you go.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's the same thing for this isn't just a dad one. I mean, this is moms and dads, and
you're right.
Any caretaker of a kid. There's no manual. You can't mentally prepare for that.
And I'm walking through the hospital because the cafeteria is 1 million miles away from the ER. And you see all this kind of stuff. I'm thinking about man, this is terrible. This is the worst thing. We're on our third kid, and this is our first visit to an ER. We have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, now newborn. This is our first visit to a children's ER. We are incredibly blessed.
Yeah.
And going through that hospital thinking I can't believe I'm here. This is, this is crazy. Even not really super deeply worried.
Right.
About it being anything long-term bad for my son. Mm-hmm. Not really worried about that, but this is the worst. This is awful. And then, walking by parents with kids who got other stuff going on. And I'm that parent is in a much tougher spot than me. Mm-hmm. That parent is in a much tougher spot than me. It's I'm freaking out. And, there are people who are kind of like we alluded to earlier, more or less living at Children's Hospital for the moment. And man, I think the strength required for that, you can't just have it. Like yeah, I can't just be that strong of a person. There's no way. Like, I feel like that's that level of strength to be able to support in those moments is, I mean, nothing short of being God given.
Yeah.
As a blessing. Because how else? Like you said, there's no manual. So you're living, I mean, moment by moment. A doctor could walk in at any minute and be like, and say, who knows what, depending on what your kid is dealing with. When all the tests were done for my son, they started to come back in his portal, his online portal, faster, before doctors were coming in and talking about him. And we had that, 10, 15 minutes of urinalysis report, abnormal, metabolic report, abnormal, like all this stuff coming in, showing as abnormal before the doctor walks in. And let me say it this way. Let me not tell you about the dark places, that your mind goes when you start seeing that kind of stuff, and trying not to freak out and be like, the worst case scenario that you're thinking about immediately. That's usually not what happens, but just 10 to 15 minutes of that. It's like, and there are parents living that dated like every day. And so, God bless you if you are in, Children's Hospital in Birmingham is one of the best places you could possibly be, for a kid who has something acute and you need care, very quickly. They take infant sickness very, very seriously, which we're grateful for. And like I said, it turned out for him just to be the common cold, and we're incredibly blessed, and he's all good to go. But there's just nothing that could have ever prepared me for that moment. You guys had it similar. I think maybe allergic reactions were reasons. Yeah,
one of that we actually didn't get admitted for that one.
That's right.
Yeah, it started clearing up while we were in the ER. We're like, okay, we showed him back to the nurse, and she was like, and we're like, we think we're just gonna take him to the pediatrician in the morning, and she was like, yeah, just do that.
Okay,
so that one was fine, but we've had a couple others.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, it's one time is too many. In terms of that stuff. Yeah. None of them are fun, but but like you said, great place to.
And my wife is a warrior when it comes to medical stuff, especially. I'm scared out of my mind, in there, and she's much more level-headed. So definitely.
Shout out to the moms.
Yeah.
Catherine's the same way. She's better at that stuff.
Yeah. And I'm just like frozen stiff, for like absolutely frozen solid. Yeah. But she's really great about that, and yeah, it all worked out, and so that's not necessarily that's not a normal day in the life of a dad, but like what I guess kind of what we meant by a day in the life is just like you feel like. There are days like that where anything can happen that you're not prepared for.
So this is what comes to my mind to be a dad, because like you said, there's not a manual, and you're really just kind of learning as you go. You have to, in some cases, and this is just generally speaking, you have to enjoy the grind a little bit. Like, maybe not even enjoy, but it's just like embrace the grind. So there is no better picture of this, and I can't even remember the guy's name. I should have just looked it up. The guy who won the U.S. Open on Father's Day. He woke up that morning in the hotel room or wherever they were staying, his wife and kid, whatever, and his kid's puking. 4 a.m., 3 a.m., something like that. I don't know. It was super. And he's telling the story. He's like, I was 2 a.m., whatever this morning. I was at a Walgreens or a CVS getting stuff for my kid. You know, he goes back. I can't even remember if he said he went back to sleep, but he comes back up, has the day of his life on the golf course, and wins his first ever major. And like,
Yeah.
but like, you almost have to like almost welcome that sort of thing. You got to be good with, I came over like tonight. My wife has in her past off and on has struggled with migraines. She hasn't had a really bad one in a long time. Well, she had one tonight, like debilitating. Can't
Right.
do what she needs.
Got to have the lights off.
Yeah, gotta have the lights. And I'm like, okay, we shoot podcast at. You know, I'm like looking at the time, texting y'all, be like, okay, I'm gonna be a little bit late. Nope, I'm gonna be a lot late. You know, like get the kids dead. So, you know, Tuesday nights when we come over here and shoot this, usually she's putting them to bed. I'm leaving. I'm like dinner, rah, 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 and then I eat, and then I leave. But you know, I'm like, okay, I got to make dinner. I got to get the kids fed, get the kids a bath, get them to bed, do all this stuff, whatever, and get over here super late and then shoot this podcast. But at the same time, like I really didn't even think about. It's just a part of it. And so like once you get to that point of like, you just have to, there's some of it's going to be a grind. All of it's going to be pretty awesome. Once you zoom out, you know, and obviously there's rough patches or whatever, all of it's going to be pretty awesome, but you got to like, you have to embrace that grind, and it has to become a part of the thing. You're like, yeah, had to do that today.
Yeah.
Like, but because if you lament all of the things that come up like that, that's when you're going to start to hate it. That's when it's going to start to affect everything else.
I think that's so true, and even not just in parenting, but you know, we could do the same thing. And I'm not talking specifically about my own self or yours, but just people like in general. But at work, that doesn't mean that doesn't mean there aren't people. You may have a really toxic workplace, and you know, bless you, but if it's not that bad, you know, it's like sometimes it's just like embracing it. It's like, okay, how can I think about someone just needs my help, you know, and I can knock this out of the park for them. And it is a lot like that in those tough times of being a dad. Now, if everything is, you know, if you have relatively healthy children like we do and that sort of thing, we're not talking about a massive percentage of time here. Like, we're not talking about it being terrible 75%, like, or being tough 75% of the time, like far less than half. And, you know, and there's tons and tons of great. And I think you're so right, because like you can let that 5%, that 10%, you can let that start to look like
way more
it's 70%, 80%. If you just let it drag you down all the time. Yeah. And I think it's super important to be like around other parents who are encouraging. Like when you get together with your friends, like, are you talking about like
how miserable you are?
How miserable it is.
You control the narrative, but not even to like other people, because how you start to tell the story is how you're going to start to believe that it's happening to you. And so when you're telling the story of what you're going through, what lens is it through?
Yeah.
Is it through misery, or is it, you know, are you able to like talk about the bad and then also, but then like zoom back out? I think about how it fits in with all the good.
Yes. When we get together, our wives, and then we another couple that we get together a lot. And I feel like when we talk about stuff that is a little bit tougher, the times that are a little bit tougher, those are always really fun conversations, because we look at it through the appropriate lens. It doesn't mean we didn't take it seriously in the moment, you know, but we didn't look at it as like, this is all the stuff that we're going through right now, you know, wrecked the life that I used to have. It's not that deep. It's really not that deep. And especially, like I said, especially for people like us who are, you know, blessed with the kids we have and, you know, and health and all that sort of thing. It's just not, you know, looking at it through the appropriate lens is, is super important. And I think when I go day by day in the day of a life of a dad, that having that zoomed out lens, like with you tonight, you're like, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to take care of it. I'm just going to get this done, and tomorrow's probably going to be a pretty good day. It doesn't mean not always going to work out that way, but, that's just such a good perspective to make sure that we keep, and it gives us a lighter outlook on life in general. And I think that's the way God wants us to look at it too.
Yeah. And you're going to get the moments where, last night, I was putting the kids to bed last night because my wife was working, and, because I wasn't going to do it tonight, but it ended up doing it.
Right.
And so it was one of those things, but, and so I was sitting there thinking about, my daughter, I was rocking her. We have a rocking chair in hers, but it's like this big chair. And so my son comes up and sits beside me. My wife is working downstairs. So, he says, "Hey, can I come in while you're putting her to sleep?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. You just have to be quiet." And he fits like perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm thinking all this stuff. I'm like, man, we're never going to fit perfectly again.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's like, you only get so much of like how that time, but, she's laying there and she's dead damn cold.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "Oh, do you need a blanket?" And Isaac pops down, gets a blanket, puts it over her, and she goes, "Thank you, Bubby." And she usually calls him Bubba. I don't know why she called him Bubby. I was like, "Thank you, Bubby." And he goes, "I love you, MM." And I'm just like sitting there watching all this unfold. I'm like, man, this is the good stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that's the day in the life. You wrap all of that other, the whatever the small percentage of junk is, all the crap that you go through, and then you get like all of that stuff, and that's what each stage is going to have its own version of that. You're not always going to fit perfectly in the rocking chair, but it's going to be something else as time progresses. So that will be the rocking chair of that era. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. If you've been watching or listening still to this point, we appreciate you. Don't forget those like and subscribe buttons. This has been a Dad Mode episode of Preacher in the Hat. See you.